Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Better Angels, written by Nick Graydon. Special High Ambassador and Senior Diplomat to the Union Council, Reeve Samugi, had a real issue on her hands. Thanks to a few friends, she was privy to information that her appearance at the upcoming inquiry was intended to be a targeted attack on humans and their government. The exact nature was still a mystery, but it was hard for her to believe, as Earth had yet to join the Union Council officially. Their laws did not weigh on a species as a whole. Humanity's foray into the stars was soon met with first contact. The resulting plan for the planet was quick and harsh, but a few ambassadors were sent forth to hammer out a few details and to stall joining the ranks of the local spacefaring species. Back home, it was quickly decided to lock down the planet. No one was to go off-planet without extensive background checks and rules to follow, handed down from the government and only then on preordained and approved business. No alien was allowed to land on the planet, and all information was to be censored and approved before being shared. Likewise, all incoming shared information was to receive similar treatment and be thoroughly vetted and censored before being loosed to the public at large. Sumugi's position demanded a certain degree of trust to have free rein on the information she shared. However, going outside censor lines would result in a mountain of paperwork to be filed. She knew, of course, the reason for the lockdown, and she had never had to give more than a smattering of unauthorized details to keep things in check. With the upcoming inquiry, however, she feared that this might change. When she opened the doors to the room, a pit developed in her stomach. The councillors on the board in front of her did not bode well for the meeting. Knowing the ranks and titles, she immediately saw how this inquiry would be handled and the targets for which they were aiming. She inwardly sighed in resignation, her rebuttal and answers already forming in her mind. As she took her seat, it was only moments before 3 lights and a buzzer went off, calling the inquiry to order. No time was wasted getting to the point. The translator in her ear sprang to life as the chairman began. "We are today to investigate claims that humans have been mistreating their citizenry and to explore rumors of misconduct. These inquiries are designed to determine if there is truth to the rumors of crimes against sentient life that require a forceful intervention by the Union." What followed was accusations of abuse and rights violations, heightened by the lack of access of information from the planet, and from Union Council species to the planet. A call to answer the lack of access of the citizens to be given freedom of movement off-planet was passionately given by one of the representatives. Through it all, Reeve Samugi remained tight-lipped and emotionless until the final representative stood and gave a scathing moral denunciation of the conduct of the human government with barely veiled threats of breaking the isolationist blockade with military might. This made her face drop in sorrow, then furrow in anger. When the final representative was finished, she was allowed to answer the accusations. She knew the council had little power to enact any real threat, especially as Earth had yet to join, but it had been 50 years now since the contacts, so maybe it was time to fill them in on the secrecy. The paperwork for divulging this would be huge, but it was freedom she had. It was not impulsive, a sure way to be an effective ambassador, but given the rather severe charges being laid at her feet and the possible loss of goodwill should these rumors circulate further, she made an executive decision to allow the council to know exactly why Earth was locked down. No amount of flowery language could get her out of this one. The time had come. Samugi slowly raised herself out of her seat to stand and give her reply. "Humans are terrible at new things. We are also terrible at passing new information when we don't like it. As a species, we have had great difficulty giving up on long-held beliefs. We refused for so long to believe lightning was not a work of the gods, or that disease was caused by the life that we couldn't even see, or even that evolution was a real thing. We almost destroyed our planet because we could not accept that it was warming irregularly from population growth and our increased use of fossil fuels. Our scientists almost crumbled when individuals were finally connected to each other, giving each a voice to the world at large for a mass communication. It would take generations for hate and bigotry to be removed from the lines of genealogical succession, and even more still, for prejudices to be removed. It took that long for humans to realize that there was no them, only different facets of us. We are a social species. We were the first joined in tribes, but often then our tribes encountered outsiders, those of other tribes. The end result was bloodshed. This was the case for over 300 millennia. It was only in the very late part of the existence we began to become better at speaking to each other's tribes and averting war as war became more and more costly. That said, be very aware that war is not new to us. We have practiced it over and over again in conflict after conflict. Some of those conflicts were for resources or owning land. Other times we fought over ideology or religion. The most spiteful and heinous wars were fought for the sole reason to dominate or eradicate those in tribes not our own. Wars are pure hate. No, war is not new. We have warred longer and harder than all of the Union Council species combined. We are sadly masters of the very well-crafted art of dealing death. War on or under land or sea, war in space or air. It does not matter. We know how to fight from a position of strength or outnumbered 100 to 1. We know how to fight when technologically inferior or superior. But the fear of war is not why we have controlled access through and from our planet. Still standing, she reached down and took a drink. All eyes in the room were on her, and all ears turned to her every word. As she drank, Ambassador Reeves felt the weight of her species was on her as well. She could not escape the feeling that this should turn out well. One day, little children would be required to learn this impromptu speech in classes. She hoped that she could finish strong. She put the glass down and continued. Humans are bad at the new and slow to give up biases and prejudices. Earth's ambassadors and few free-roaming folk are being given time to make mistakes and cause small-scale issues, so books and guides and laws can be written to avoid unfavorable contact with others, as we hope to lessen any negative interactions that fester into the bigotry in the minds of our population and in the minds of other species. I told you we've been making war for most of our existence, but before we made war, we made friends with those in our tribes. We made fellow tribesmen laugh, and we shared our possessions with them. We made music together and shared stories. We cured the ill and took care of the elderly. We protected and bartered and loved each other. And that is what we want. We don't want to allow our peoples to rush out to meet the new aliens. We want time to acclimate to the new normal, where our people rush out to meet fellow tribesmen. Ambassador Reeves sat down. She looked at the council and smiled as she poured herself more water. I hope that this information serves to alleviate any concerns you possess. We are not endangering or mistreating our people. We are protecting ourselves from foreigners until they are no longer foreigners. Give us time to foster our better angels, so no one has to fear our demons. End of story. Story number 2. When They Came, written by Louis Le Diamond. I remember when we came to Earth, our empire lost and our spirits broken. Our entire civilization lay in ruin, and so we fled. We had no idea that planet was inhabited. A primitive race known as the humans called the small blue rock home. They had welcomed us into their arms, and we built an island to live. They traded and visited us, learning of our culture and of our plight. I remember when they came, the ones who burned everything we had to the ground. They were to finish the deed they had started, and were to wipe out the apes that had given us refuge. But the humans stood tall. They stood and faced the danger. Their lands were burned and their people slaughtered, but they never ceased to fight. They fought countless futile battles just to win an inch of land back. They spilled their blood for our sins. In the end, it wasn't enough. No matter how hard the invaders pushed, the primates they called this planet their home were too determined to let it slip away. The endless invading fleets were no match for humanity's unwavering courage. When the dust finally settled, the invaders were gone. Earth wasn't worth it. We weren't worth it. Hundreds of millions of humans were dead. But the invaders had suffered worse. I remember when we came to Earth, a refuge that became a friend. End of story. I would quickly like to thank our Tier 5 patrons and channel members: Casper Arnholt, Cam Maxwell, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Lord Arishakal, Dragzoon, WRE, and Arcadian. Thank you very much.